forget to like and subscribe. Ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts because we have a guest who knows how to light up the screen both behind the scenes and in front of it. Get ready to meet the unsung hero of the entertainment industry, one whose talents range from the electrifying stunts to captivating performances that'll leave you on the edge of your seat. He's not just an ordinary player in the world of entertainment. No, he's the wizard behind the lens, the maestro of stunts, and a performer whose charisma knows no bounds. With credits spanning from the hair-raising Camp Death to the visually stunning The Fall of Alexandria, he's the unsung hero responsible for the magic happening behind the camera. But wait, that's not where the magic ends. This dynamic artist doesn't just excel in the technicalities. No, he's the man orchestrating heart-stopping stunts in thrilling productions like Monkey Slayer and Rippers, adding the adrenaline rush that leaves audience breathless. But hold on to your hats, because here's where the excitement truly kicks in. Not content with being the wizard behind the curtain, he's graced screens with his on-screen presence in a variety of roles, from the heartwarming Here for Scarlet to the mysterious Zington, and even making appearances in hit shows like DC's Legends of Tomorrow. This individual just isn't a master of the craft behind the camera, he's a scene stealer in front of it too. And if that's not enough to impress you, he's ventured into spine-chilling territories with roles in Death and Fantasy, Clown Motel, and even braved the wilderness in Bigfoot Country. This artist is a true chameleon, effortlessly slipping into roles and span genres and captivating audiences. So get ready to witness the magic of a true multi-talented dynamo, an artist who wears many hats and wears them oh so well. Please welcome our guest, who has electrifying presence both on and off the screen, promises that he'll be nothing short of riveting. Please welcome Hans Potter. On so much for your time, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I want to dive into this with you here. Your career spans across various roles, right?
Mhm.
We have the camera, electrical department, to stunt coordinating and to acting. How do these different roles complement each other in your creative process?
Well, I also do a lot of teaching, and something I always tell my students is it's about looking at the cogs in the machine. A lot of times when we view the world of film or even the world of theater, actors obviously come to the forefront, and people think of actors as like the be all end all. But really, at the end of the day, actors are an employee, a single cog that helps the whole thing move forward. So for me, I realized really early on in my career, if I wanted to be a good actor, it also helped to be good at other things. And the nice thing about that was once I started working, I realized, oh, I may not always book the role. But if I love the project or the project is calling to me, I can always say, well, listen, I can come on and help you with other things as well. And what this has meant for me is, as an actor, I always know what's going on, and it's increased my professionality when I'm on set. I can be a pro knowing that I know exactly what everyone's doing on set, and I feel very comfortable on set, which in my opinion, makes my performances better, more relaxed.
That's a massive advantage in a lot of avenues, knowing what's happening before it's happening or what the calls are setting up. So I want to ask you, do you prefer being with the students and teaching and training and doing the stunt coordinating, or being in the lens as an actor?
Well, to me, I've always thought of them as my two separate lives. Especially in the last couple of years, and to be honest, some of the other little secret, the trick I'll tell you right now, my main focus in teaching, and this doesn't really come up in a lot of my resume, is actually I'm an accents and dialects coach first and foremost. And quite frankly, even with the stunt stuff, a lot of the stunt stuff, mostly nowadays, I deal with firearm safety and coordination. I'm heading into my 30s. I've taken a few bruises. I don't do a lot of the heavy hitting stuff anymore. I've moved into other things. But when I look at teacher Hans versus actor Hans, I actually make it a point to separate the two. I find that as actor Hans, I need to maintain a certain ego. And I don't mean that in a negative way. What I mean is I need to know I'm assured of myself. I need to know that I can stand out. As teacher me, I need to learn how to step back. So I know it seems like a cheap way to answer your question, but quite frankly, I like both of them because I get to put on different hats when I put on different roles.
So let's talk about teacher Hans for a moment. When you're
Sure.
teaching and you're telling your students, here's how to be safe, what is some of the rookie moves or the rookie mistakes people are coming in with outside of the ego that says, this is how I'm going to punch, or this is how I'm going to kick or fall or disarm somebody? What is the most common, thing that you see that you shouldn't be doing when we come to you?
You know what? I'll say this as a blanket statement for almost any acting course, whether I'm teaching, a stunt class or an accent class or a scene study class or an on-camera class, it doesn't matter. The biggest thing that I find a lot of students struggle with is we're not realizing that acting is a challenge and you're allowed to be bad and you don't have to show everybody how amazing you are day one. Where I find a lot of actors get into trouble, no matter what they're doing, is when they're green, they think, well, I'm an actor. I've said I'm an actor, therefore I'm an actor, therefore I can do everything. And so even when I'm sitting there telling an actor, for example, say I'm doing a firearms demonstration, I'm saying, well, this is how you safely handle firearms. A lot of people get in their head of like, well, no, I need to prove how amazing I am. I'm just going to take the gun and I'm going to run with it. And it's like, no, you need to calm down. Or if I'm doing, say a fight coordination, if I'm doing a choke demonstration or I'm doing a throw demonstration, I've had a lot of actors in the past who go, well, I need to be amazing. I need to show everybody how amazing I am. So I'm going to jump into this without actually taking time to think. So taking young actors and removing their ego is very important. And then letting them earn that ego back is what I think helps develop actors from the ground up.
I like what you said. We're going to take away your ego. The ego stops at the door and you're going to slowly build it back up, or take it with you when you leave. But in this classroom, you can't just grab the prop gun and run around and think you know what you're doing.
Exactly.
So how did you get into stunts? I mean, we were in the electrical department, you're doing some camera stuff. And as you said, you like to wear many hats and be a cog of the larger machine. What was it about stunts specifically that you said, you know what, I really feel this is, a home base for me?
Sure, and I'll be like I said, I've had to kind of move away within the last couple of years just because the body gives up. But early on in my career, I have a background in clown. Funny enough, so just that physicality, that physical movement. Quite frankly, you're not going to see. I'm not the guy who's doing the incredibly complicated punch out, throw down, daredevil scene. Where I found my skills were things like creature roles. Like one of my movies, 3 Hours Till Dead, I'm the zombie. I was the guy getting killed a lot. I'm the guy who's getting thrown to the ground. The guy's getting punched. The guy's getting kicked. And in recent years, what I've really evolved it to is, especially with what happened with, say, for example, Alec Baldwin on Rust. I've been dealing with firearms since I was very young, and I've really changed my focus into, well, I want to focus on teaching this. It's a little easier on my body. And I also feel like it's something that actors don't get enough education with early enough in their career. And so, when you're a young actor and someone hands you a prop gun, and you're expected to know what you're doing, I don't think we give enough actors tools. So in the last couple of years, I've really moved from that more physical stuff into the more safety stuff.
So when we talk about the physicality, what's the worst injury or stunt that you've had to perform that you were just like, you know what, this is where I'm calling it quits?
Yeah, I'll tell you the worst injury I had, and then I'll tell you the injury where I finally went, I need to walk away from this. The worst injury I had was on doing 3 Hours Till Dead when I was a lot younger. We were doing a stunt where I was a zombie and I had to run and jump onto the hood of an RV, monster and all that. And I had what's called eye blood in. So eye blood, for those who've never had it in, little drops go in your eyes, they red up your eyes, but it forces you to have tunnel vision. So you can only see a very small pinpoint. And so we knew I'd be essentially down to 20% of my vision before doing the stunt. So I practiced the stunt repeatedly, the jump. If you've never seen the hood of an RV, it's quite the jump. So I had to make it onto the top of this RV. And so what we did was we had a hay bale in front of the RV. The idea being I'd use the hay bale to launch myself on. And so we practiced it, no problem, we're all good. Then when I was about to go for the stunt, a very lovely and helpful PA said, "Oh, someone left a hay bale here," and removed it. Without saying anything. And so there's cutting room footage of me running to the front of this RV all monstery, jumping, no hay bale, and I just slam into the front of the RV, ribs first. So I had a nice bruise on my ribs, took the air out of me. You can hear on camera the first AD screaming, "Who's the idiot who removed the hay bale?" But funny enough, that wasn't the injury to kind of do me in. Later on, I worked on a production called I Killed Maddie Forbes. This was last summer. Really fun production, really fun to do, really nice to do. And I had to get roughed up quite a bit in that production. And, I was working with an actor who was a really good actor, very enthusiastic, but wasn't really there for the safety. He was a bit method, which is something I I have my own issues with, and kind of decided just to go for an attack, go for a stunt, and quite frankly, damage my throat. And I do a lot of voice work. I do a lot of accent and dialect work. I had more days to do in that production, and suddenly I had, a bruised throat. I was having trouble breathing, and I realized, okay, I need to walk away from a lot of this. This is, I have two small kids, soon to be three. I can't be crippled in my 40s.
So as we talk about this safety, how do you approach choreographing a stunt, whether it's, you know, a punch or a kick, or even with the gun safety? How do you do that so that everything is safe but also visually impactful?
Of course. So I actually developed, weirdly enough, I've also done a lot of intimacy coordination. And so I've developed a system that I call SAFE. So SAFE is an acronym. The first thing being save it, or say it, sorry. So the S is say it. The A is acknowledge it. The F is figure it out. The E is engage. And what this means is the first thing you do is we need to talk, right? If you and I are in a scene together and we're going to do a stunt, and it could be as simple as I just have to punch you. I have to punch you once. Well, you and I are going to talk about it. I'm going to say, listen, I'm going to come. I'm going to cock back. You're going to see my fist. I'm going to cue you. I'm going to throw. You're going to have your camera react. We're going to really talk it out. Then we're going to figure it out. And I have said this about both fight and intimacy. You need to rehearse it until it's boring. If it's not boring, you're not doing it right. You shouldn't be surprised by anything I do on the day. You shouldn't be anxious about anything we do. Anxiety is what makes people make mistakes. If you're anxious about a fight with me and you're not sure what's going to happen, that's when the mistakes occur, because you are anticipating the worst. If you and I have rehearsed this fight to the point that we could do it in our sleep, perfect. And then I'm sorry, I missed the A. And the A was acknowledge it. You telling me like, yes, I understand everything. Sorry, I missed that A step. And then E is engage. And I always say you engage the stunt as is. The mistakes I've seen on sets are things like, I'll tell one of the stories. I have a friend of mine who's a stunt guy. He was supposed to do a fight with a girl, and in the scene, she thought it'd be really interesting if she slapped him out of the blue. Just said, okay, I'm just gonna slap him. And the thing is, he was a big guy, she was a small girl, but she hit him in a way that was so specific, it cracked his jaw. Right now, this is a working stunt guy. Suddenly he's out of work for months on end. So, she gets sued, she's out 30 grand, he's out work. And to me, that's where mistakes are made. You can't improvise fight. And when I talk about safety on set, I always say the biggest thing you should say is no. If you don't understand something, say no. If you feel unsafe, say no. If somebody's doing something you don't like, say no. And if you're on a production that gets angry at you for saying no, you should leave that production.
Those are really good tips. I like that you said that there. And it's interesting because I want to switch hats here for a moment and talk about your acting. I mean, your credits range from diverse projects like Here for Scarlet to appearances in popular shows like DC's Legends of Tomorrow, as you are drinking out of your Green Lantern mug there. As an actor, how do you prepare for the varying roles that come your way?
Of course, and this is where I probably differ from a lot of actors I know. Is I come from a very technical background. I have my degree is from the University of Alberta. I have a degree in theater theory and theory study and theater sciences and things like that. So when I prepare for a role, I start with what I like to call the facts. Before I get into the character, before I start finding my emotion, before I do anything, I just reconcile with the facts of the script. Who am I playing? What am I doing? Where am I? What are the rules of the scene? What are the rules of the show? If you're doing a sci-fi, you have rules in that sci-fi, things your character just accepts or doesn't accept. If you're doing a romance, there's rules to romance. So I just find the facts first. Once the facts are established, then I can really look at my lines and start to reconcile, like, okay, how do my lines relate to these facts? When I'm talking to this character, who is this character? How do I relate to this character? And then kind of my third step is then, okay, well, I need to find the emotion. I'm a big Meisner and Adler guy. You'll never find me method acting. I will say that right off the bat. I like things like substitution and given imaginary circumstances. If I have to do a scene where, I'm dealing with, say, the death of my father. Okay, well, I'm going to substitute that with, say, someone who I know died close to me, or I use imaginary circumstance. What if it was my father who passed away? Those are the techniques I work in. So I think a lot of actors, if you see me on set, I'm the guy who between takes is having fun, be respectful, but, I'm chatting, I'm having a donut, I'm talking to the crew, I'm talking to my fellow castmates. And then what I really pride myself is the minute someone says, ready to go, I can drop into character. I don't need to hold that character because I do a really good job of what's called bookmarking my emotions. If I need to be very sad this next scene, I have that bookmark. I'm ready to go when you need me.
I like that. I like that you said that we have these bookmark of emotions that we can just come back to, so you're not, involved in that character 24/7, especially when the camera's not rolling.
Mhm.
So what makes a role appealing to you? You get the breakdown, the audition gets sent to you, the project comes your way. How do you know which project to say yes to?
You know what? I have challenged myself as an actor to say yes to everything, which I've regretted, to be honest. But that's the thing. I think for me as an actor, I love the idea of hating a project, but still being amazing. I realize that sounds very egotistical, but the goal is, okay, wow, this character doesn't really speak to me, or this role doesn't speak to me, or this script doesn't speak to me. Well, it doesn't matter. My job as an actor is to make the writer happy, right? I think of it more as like that's how I almost diffuse my ego. It's not about me. Or somebody has poured their love into the script, whether it's a commercial or a Hallmark movie or a small indie film. Somebody loves this script and deserves to have their script seen in the brightest light. So I don't try to think about like I know there's roles I love to play, but I like to say I try to find the love of every role. Does that make sense?
No, no, it does, and I'm very curious. Are you able to share with us this role that you didn't overly enjoy with keeping names and titles off of it? What made that so? I regretted that one.
You know what? And typically, the regret for a role for me is when I'm working with people who are not pleasant. And when I sign onto a script and I meet the writer or I meet the director and they're kind of rude or they're not treating people with respect. I go, well, now I'm regretting giving a part of myself to you. And even if a movie's bad, I've done really bad movies that I've loved. Like I'll happily say because the director knows, like Camp Death 3 is one of my favorite movies I've ever done. Is it a good movie? No. But I loved every minute of it because I had so much fun and the crew was amazing. And Matt Framer, the director, him and I really had a great time making that movie. And we knew what we were making. We knew we were making a campy, over the top horror film. We knew what it was. But then I've done very serious projects where the scripts are like, okay, yeah, this is really good, meaty script, but the writer or the director is so cruel, or even a castmate is so cruel. I go, well, I don't want to give myself to this project because you guys are treating people so poorly. And to me, that's the title is professional actor. And part of that's being a professional. And so I want to be a pro for you. You should be a pro for me.
I like that you said that it's one of those things where I got to spend the next 14, 30 days or 2 months with you.
Mhm.
And if you're not going to be the nicest individual that I've met or even a respectful individual, man, I got to somehow find a way to get through the next 10, 14, 30 odd days with you.
Yes.
Now, is there a genre that speaks to you more than another? Like, would you do only rom-coms? Would you do only action or horror? If you said, hey, this is the career path that I want to see in genres moving forward, what would that look like?
Sure. It's funny. Young me would have said horror all day. I love horror movies. I love being covered in blood and gore, and I love being murdered. Being murdered is so much fun. I love it. But it's really hard on the whole body. My knees are not what they used to be. My shoulders aren't what they used to be. So nowadays, I'm like all about those comedies or those like family dramas where I get to wear kind of nicer clothes and I'm not covered in sticky blood every day. And somebody hands me a coffee and it's kind of a pleasant day. I'm a big fan of doing cop roles. I love playing cops. I love playing, and my secret joy is playing bad TV lawyers because my wife's a lawyer. So getting to be a bad TV lawyer is also joy for me as well.
And Hans, where can people learn more about you? Where can they find your school, your teachings? Where can they learn more about you?
Yeah, of course. Well, so I teach at New Image College. I have an Instagram account called Hans Acting Out and a TikTok account as well. Those accounts are really dedicated to doing things like giving acting tips or showing off the projects I'm working on. Like I said, I'm really moving. A lot of my educational work is moving in the way of like accents and dialects work. That's kind of my other big specialty. And so if people are interested in that, that's where you'll find all my information about doing accent and dialect work as well.
And with your career being rewarding and the aspects of your multifaceted career thus far, what's been one of those things where you've just like, this is my favorite moment to date that you can share with us?
Oh gosh, favorite moment to date, man. it's gonna sound weird because you would think it would be on one of like the the big shows I worked on or whatever. But honestly, my probably my favorite moment today was wrapping a movie called Kamikaze Eric. Not because we were wrapping it, but because it's one of those movies I felt really passionate about when I did that movie. It's probably one of my favorite scripts I've ever done. It's one of my favorite characters I've ever played. And we came to the end of that movie, and I was so proud of it. And then when we ended up, watching it later, I was like, I was really proud of that work. It really showed me like, oh, I can. It was one of my earlier projects, funny enough. And I'm sure now, if I did it again nowadays, I might even be better. But I watched that movie going, oh, I think I'm actually supposed to be an actor. It was really one of the first moments I thought, yeah, I'm supposed to be here. I love this character. I love what I did with it. I was really proud of it.
So if you could go back in time and speak to little Hans, and you had to pick a different career avenue outside of what you're currently doing, what do you think you would have done?
Like, if I went not actor,
Not acting, not coaching, not stunt, not dialect. You got to pick something completely different.
I probably would have ended up in sales, just knowing me. I've always been a people person. I'm one of those rare people who loves dealing with customers. Like, if you put me when I used to work retail growing up, I was one of those guys, like, it doesn't matter, a problem customer. I love solving people's problems. I think it's why I did end up going into the production route a little bit. A part of my joy is solving people's problems. So I always loved the idea of, if you bring me onto your sales team, I'm going to learn everything I can about your product. So when a customer comes to me with a problem, I can solve it. And I loved sending people away with that feeling that they spoke to the right person and got what they needed.
I love that. That's a fantastic answer. And with your career and your diverse repertoire, what's some advice that you would give to aspiring actors or people looking to get involved in the entertainment industry?
Of course, yeah. My biggest piece of advice is you need to love it. And when I say that, I realize that's a cliche answer, but I'm gonna double down on it. When I say is acting will never love you back. Acting is like a almost like an abusive relationship. You'll be poor a lot of your life. You'll, deal with a lot of heartbreak and a lot of disappointment. And you might go years between things like bookings or even finding your footing. And so when I say you have to love acting, what I mean is you have to love the craft of acting. You actually have to genuinely enjoy learning it. If your only goal is to go into acting and be famous, well, go start a YouTube career, go start a TikTok channel. Like, there's other ways to get famous. Acting is not the way to go. You need to genuinely love what you're doing. You need to love the craft. You need to love even the terrible parts. And that way you get to survive. Otherwise, you won't survive very long in this industry.
And you know what? That is incredibly well said. And it's almost like rehearsed. It's almost like you knew that that was a question.
It's almost like I teach a lot of students a year and I give that speech quite often.
So Hans, I'd like to ask you something a little bit more personal. What's something that scares you, bud?
You know, what scares me has changed over the years, but nowadays what scares me is seeing the future for my boys. Like, I got two young boys. My oldest is 3.5, my youngest is 1.5, and what scares me is them going into a world that's not going to offer them anything. I really, I look at things like pricing, and I look at housing, and I look at the job market and the economy. And as a young man, I would have never even thought I'd have these fears. But nowadays my fear is my kids not getting the opportunities I had and not being able to provide those opportunities for my kids.
And if someone asked your friends, "Hey, what's something that people tend to misunderstand about Hans the most?" What would you say?
That when if I'm giving you a little bit of heck, if I'm ribbing on you, if I'm having a laugh, it's because I love you. If I'm being very like aloof and cold, that means I don't trust you.
Mhm.
I grew up in a household of two older brothers. I grew up with a bit of a rowdy family. We showed love through just a little bit of teasing, a little bit of poking fun. And so if I'm poking fun at you, it's because I like you.
It's the old adage, if I pull your hair on the playground, I like you too.
That's right. I want to date you. Come on.
And Hans, I have time for one last question for you, and I really appreciate your time, and you've been absolutely amazing today, sir. It's what makes Hans smile?
Well, I mean, once again, I got those two kids, and I'd say it's almost the third side of Hans. I've got the three things, right? Teacher Hans, what makes me smile is seeing my students succeed. Actor Hans, what makes me smile is just walking onto any set or stage. That feels where I'm supposed to be. And then there's Dad Hans, and what makes me smile is my boys every day. And so, a nice thing about being me right now is I have three different avenues to get my smiles from. So life is pretty good for me.
I love that. That is absolutely amazing. And as I said, sir, that's the last question I had for you. I really appreciate your time today on Coffee with Chris. Everybody out there, Make sure you get the opportunity to check out Hans Potter, Google him, whatever you need to do. Remember to smile to inspire, have 3 avenues like Hans if you can, and have yourself a fantastic day. Thank you so
Chris,
much for
thank
your
you
time.
so much. Thank you.